Good evening. Sorry for the delay. Welcome to the South Burlington Development Review Board for December 17th, 2024. My name is Dawn Philibert. I'm the chair of the board, and I'd like to introduce the other board members who are here. To far left, John Muscatelli, Frank Kochman, Charlie Johnston, Quinn Mann, and on my right, our staff, wonderful staff, I might add, Marla Keene and Marty Gillies. Thank you all for coming or participating via video tonight. This meeting is being recorded. There are a number of ways to participate, one of which is to attend in person, as some of you have done. Another way is to attend virtually online. And if you are doing so, it is important that you register your participation by putting your contact information in the chat box so that we have documentation of your participation should you ever wish in the future to take any action. Similarly, if you're listening to this meeting by phone, you can participate and document your participation by emailing Marla at mkeene@southburlingtonvt.gov. And if you are here, it's important that you sign up in the back of the room by the table. Sign up with your contact information again to document your participation. So let's get on with the agenda. First, I want to review the emergency evacuation procedures. In the event of an emergency, there are exit doors in each corner of the back of the auditorium. You would exit those and turn either left or right to exit the building. Are there any additions, deletions, or changes in the order of agenda items? No. Okay, thank you. Are there any announcements? Nope. Hearing none. Are there any comments and questions from the public that are not related to the specific agenda? Okay. Hearing none, we will go ahead with tonight's agenda. Number 5, looking at projects. Pardon me. Agenda item number 5 is continued conditional use application CU 2407 of Cosentino and Manning to amend a previously approved conditional use approval for a single-family home. The amendment is to increase the amount of the building that is proposed to be set back less than 5 feet from the side lot line at 11 White Place. Who is here for the applicant?
I'm Ryan Manning.
Hi, Ryan.
And I'm Maddie's Manning.
Missa Aloisi, the architect.
Hi. Anyone else? No. Okay, let's swear you in. Raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under penalty of perjury?
I do.
Thank you. Okay, you have the staff report. We've all read it. Let me start by asking if you have any introductory comments before we start to go through the staff report.
Yeah, I do.
Okay, go ahead, Ryan.
So over the last month, I've had some time to reflect on our previous meeting, and I'm hoping in these comments to make a few points clear as I don't believe I had previously. I suffered a cervical spinal cord injury 2 years ago, which has left me a quadriplegic with compromised arm strength, very limited hand function, and a full-time wheelchair user. Maddie's and my goal with this renovation is to make our home on White Place as accessible as possible to afford me as much independence as every able-bodied person in the room. For the last 2 years, I've been unable to put my now 3 and 6-year-old daughters to bed on the second floor of our home. I've spent multiple nights per week at my parents' house in Underhill so that I could shower, as our current shower downstairs won't fit my shower chair. There are current aspects of our home that pose safety risks as well as impediments to the independence for myself. There's a small steep ramp that goes from the three-season porch into our narrow doorway that leads into our house. This can and has caused me to tip over backwards in my wheelchair if not navigated perfectly. Our current bedroom's closet is too narrow for me to get in to get my clothing, and there's no room for a dresser as an alternative. This leaves me relying on someone to get my clothes for me daily. There is currently no safe way for me to access our backyard to supervise my children while they play. I'm highlighting these as they are a fraction of the issues that I face in our home, and I'm hoping to illustrate that what a minor convenience might be for an able-bodied person can multiply tenfold for someone like myself. The ADA dimensions that we have incorporated into the design that's up for review right now will help to solve almost all of these problems for me. The current design up for review has taken into consideration every minimum measurement guideline in the ADA requirements. You'll see a very specific 3 foot 4 inches from the property line. We're not trying to maximize square footage or value, as we most likely will not see a monetary return on our investment for this addition. We have supplied a floor plan that outlines these measurements. They have been reviewed by my OT at UVM with a response saying that they might not even be big enough for what we need. I could continue on with many other things in this renovation will afford me and my family, but I'll leave it here, hoping you all have a better understanding of why we're doing this and why we're here in front of you asking for this conditional use.
Thank you, Ryan. Okay,
I
any
have a
questions?
preliminary question,
Sure,
if
go
I may,
ahead, Frank.
because I think raising the ADA is a reasonable thing to do, and I think we should pay close attention. But there's a fundamental question: I'm sorry, is the architect here? Yeah. All right. Speaking professionally, in your professional opinion, is it your opinion that the ADA standards cannot be met without violating the sideline requirements?
Correct. So just a little brief history on ADA. So I think you all know, well, maybe you don't know, but ADA was first signed into law in 1990, so it's not that old. In 1991, they created standards for design. The standards are meant to be for public use of buildings. So there is no actual standard for private residential. The public use standards are set up to be minimums and guidelines for that. When you're designing for ADA, universal design, I like to call it, you really have to take in account who's using it and how they need to use it. I don't know if you have the floor plans, but maybe we could put that one up, which is the second floor, because I think it will speak to you about the requirements. And it's set
I mean,
forth.
you understand what I'm questioning. You're
Yeah.
saying 1.5 feet is essentially your argument, if I understand it correctly, is 1.5 feet off our standards, the DRB standards, is essential to meeting each of the concerns that the applicant has cited. Is that your testimony today?
We don't want to reduce our square footage because of ADA requirements and making it functional.
That it doesn't quite go to what I'm asking. I'm asked specifically which ADA requirement is violated by moving
I'll show you in
by
the floor
backing
plan.
off 1.5 feet.
Right ahead. It's small, but you can see the bathroom in the owner's suite, and that's the only bathroom that Ryan.
I get a little help from a
There we go.
pointer here.
It's really. You can zoom out a little bit because you're missing the shower.
Where's the exterior of the house?
To the south of the page, the bottom of the page.
The bottom of the page.
And that's the wall that we're actually talking about right there.
Okay. So that moves 1.5 feet up the page. What happens then?
Then you don't have turning radius in the bedroom to meet his ability to move around the bedroom. And you also will not have, you can see those dotted lines are the turning radius for the wheelchair for him to be able to actually turn around. And it's required at the shower, the toilet, and the vanity. And the vanity is actually really close and potentially that medical supply closet's going to get shrunk because of that. So these, to make his bathroom work, and is showing the requirements that he needs to turn around. And those standards are set by those public standards, those design standards from 1991. The current code we follow is from 2010.
Well, what if the vanity were relocated?
It's speak into the mic, please, Frank.
Yeah. Pardon?
Speak into the mic.
Oh, I'm sorry. I mean, I see 2 points on what you're raising. The closet being, let's take the closet first because that's the most obvious. If the closet was 1.5 feet less deep, what would that be? What consequence would that have on ADA standards? None. He's not going to turn around in the closet.
Well, they need the closet to store medical supplies.
Right, and he has
That's accessible.
He has 1.5 feet left. What's the depth of the closet now?
It's on the outside of the wall, so it's probably a foot deep.
What's the interior depth?
It's about a foot deep. A
A
little less
foot?
than that.
1 foot deep?
Correct.
That's the scale of this thing, then?
Deep, yeah.
Medical supply closet or the main big closet?
Which closet are you looking
I'm
at? Frank?
talking about owner's suite, the closet that comes up against the wall we're concerned with.
So where the cursor is.
The owner's suite sets the requirements, but the bathroom is really what sets the requirements on that. Because you need the bathroom to function. Right now, their house doesn't function because they don't have a bathroom which he can use.
I get it. I'm concerned. What we're concerned with is that wall.
Well, I guess I just want to make sure we're on the right track. They don't need to justify why they're asking for their conditional use, right? We're just reviewing whether the conditional use meets the conditional use criteria.
No, I think they do. I think why matters because if the ADA, the question is under the ADA whether what they're asking for is a reasonable accommodation under the ADA, and if it is, it supersedes any requirement of ours.
Sure. So
That's my point.
I hear you. So I guess
And if it's not necessary, in other words, if it's an unreasonable, if it exceeds the bounds of a reasonable accommodation, then we should stick by our standards.
I think there was an email that I forwarded along to Marty that came from the lead OT at UVM, that occupational therapist who evaluates these things for when people go home from the hospital. So I don't know if that'll help, but I don't know that it got there in time to.
No, it won't.
But we have it there to display it, that she looked it over and was actually concerned that it wasn't enough space for me to be turning around.
Yeah, well, it's the generality of enough space. What I want to do is focus us and you on the very narrow question of that wall. Why does that specific wall have to be 1.5 feet further toward the boundary than our regulations require? And so far, I'm at least not persuaded that it has to be. The closet is what depth exactly? That's the closet we're concerned with.
If you look at the closet, though, if you move to my left as I'm looking at this, where it says vanities in the bathroom, the shower, the toilet, those circles there afford the room to spin around in the bathroom. So, I mean, you could move the wall in where the closet is 1.5 feet, but you can't do that in the bathroom.
Okay, and what is to the left? Left and right. Like looking on this drawing, what is to the left of the sink? The left of the vanity. What is that? What's that space?
I think it's 2 sinks.
It's 2 sinks. It's a double sink.
Because one is a roll under for Ryan, and one is a roll under sink, and the other one is not.
Is that why the circle?
They actually will
crosses
probably be at different heights as well.
Okay.
All right, and it can't move up the page. I don't know. Is up north?
Can we just go back to can we go through what we have?
No,
because my understanding is that the DRB doesn't have jurisdiction over the interior design of a property. But
I'm sorry. Look, I think I know what I'm doing. All right, so stick with me. What we have to take note of is You're making an ADA argument. So we have to take into consideration the validity of that argument. To say we don't have jurisdiction over the interior design may be entirely true if the ADA wasn't involved. But you're asking us to make a ruling, you're implicitly asking us to make a ruling on reasonableness. And we can't make a ruling on reasonableness unless we look at the interior design.
So, Frank, what I'm hearing from you is that question one is this completely exempt from our regulation as an ADA accessibility issue?
Certainly not.
And then question two is, if it's not exempt under ADA, does it meet our conditional use standards? Can we review it like a project that doesn't have an ADA component?
Well, of course we can, subject to any reasonable accommodation that is requested.
So what if we moved ahead with that part and just reviewed it?
Pardon?
If we ignore the accessibility piece and just review it as a conditional use, it's still approvable. It doesn't, they don't need to justify it through ADA.
But last meeting, right? We heard testimony from a neighbor talking about infringement upon their side lot, right? And we asked the architect to make a modification or to prove that modification isn't infringing upon that, right? So do we have some justification in this packet that shows that it's not infringing upon their views or the other three criteria was?
Yeah, so that's all addressed in my memo.
Okay.
And I think our staff's recommended finding is that based on the contents of what the applicant submitted, right? So
really, we're not here to discuss ADA. We're here to discuss the rest of the packet, which is the views, the
safety, parking,
right.
Solar, yeah.
And I'd like to, so I could also speak to all of
Hold
that.
on, let the board member finish, please,
What
Ms.
I'm trying to say is we shouldn't be making an ADA argument here for that foot and a half. You should be moving on to the other arguments and saying that, we set this boundary and here's some backstory, right? But that's not the argument we're making. We're making the argument for the other parts.
Can I say something? I think the reason why we're showing the inside is because that is what the board had requested last time when we met. You asked to see the inside to see if it was ADA. So that's why we're presenting this right now. We do, Missa did a sun study, a view study. We have privacy addressed as well, but we're trying to present the inside like the board had asked.
Okay. Frank, you had something to say. I could tell.
I'm taken aback.
Speak into the mic, please.
I am taken aback because I'm not quite sure what Charlie is saying. I don't know how we can disregard this. The issue is the proximity of the wall to the boundary, is it not?
It is, but the criteria isn't based on.
Your mic's not on.
Oh, sorry. But our understanding is the criteria is not based on the ADA compliance. It's if they're trying to get a waiver to that. Basically, or waive that condition. They're saying I'm going to infringe upon the side lot, and it's fine because I've met all these other conditions that are in, and I don't have it in front of me. Marty, what are they? They're
conditions of waiver independent of the
ADA. Which are I have to pull up the old one, but I think it was view, public safety or safety.
Yeah, adequacy of parking and solar. There's 4.
And what they've done in their packet, right, is they've created a bunch of views here showing that, there's not inducing more shade, or there's, not reducing the view lines. It's not reducing, so there's more in here, right? So I'm trying to move away from the interior, right, and look at those 4 specific things that waives the.
Okay, well, they raised it.
I know.
So my understanding is that the reasonable accommodation request comes into play if the conditional use criteria are not otherwise met.
I'm sorry, it comes into play.
The reasonable accommodation request only needs to come into play if the application does not meet the conditional use criteria without taking that into consideration. If it meets the conditional use criteria regardless of the reasonable accommodation request.
I agree with that.
Okay, so I think that the argument that's being made is let's move on to the conditional use, and if conditional use tests are not satisfied, then circle back to the reasonable accommodation request.
Sounds fair to me. Is that okay with you?
Great. Yeah.
Okay.
So I think let's go back to the adverse effect. So I think the thing that we came back with was a memo stating the adverse effect with the four criteria. So my understanding is that you are reviewing views of adjoining and nearby properties and principal buildings located there, also access to sunlight of adjoining and nearby properties, and adequate on-site parking and safety of adjoining nearby property. So for the purpose of this project, we focused on views, access to sunlight, and safety with regards to the nearby property. So I've provided the sun studies, which explore the changes of solar access during the summer solstice, winter solstice, and the fall and spring equinoxes. The studies, which if you have them, show that there's little adverse effect, changes to sunlight on the neighboring property with this proposed addition. I'd also like to note that I did provide a sun study showing the previously approved DRB from a year ago, which actually had greater adverse effect than the addition that we're proposing. So from the plans that were approved a year ago, we've actually decreased that adverse effect, in which the neighbor had no comment to prior to. So we believe that this new proposal actually improves these conditions. I also am showing view corridors on a floor plan or a site plan, which show that there's only one window in the front of the neighboring property that changes the view corridor by 14 degrees. The rest remain the same with the existing buildings. And that is a view corridor towards the street. The view corridor to the rear of the property stays the same. In regards to safety, parking is a non-issue. In regards to safety, building code regulates safety, regardless of your decision. The building official and life and safety codes regulate that, and this project will meet those guidelines.
Cool. So I think this is probably a good time just to look at the staff comments. So staff comment 1 here kind of takes into account staff comments 1 and 2 from the previous staff comment that we had produced for the last meeting. And so that one kind of just summarizes that we had questions about the setback on the east side, and then you move that back to 3 feet. And so staff comment 1 is that we consider sort of those issues to be resolved because that's been moved back to 3 feet. And then I think a lot of what you're talking about right now is sort of staff comment 2 of this memo. So I don't know if we want to move there.
Yes. Shall I read it? Staff considers that the materials provided by the applicant are sufficient, to demonstrate that the proposed encroachment of 20 inches into the western side yard setback will not have an undue adverse effect on the views from 9 White Place. Staff considers that views from the eastern window of 9 White Place are already extremely limited. This will not be substantially improved or worsened by the proposed building addition at 11 White Place, and will not have an undue adverse effect on the access to sunlight of 9 White Place. Staff considers that sunlight access is demonstrated in the sun studies provided by the applicant. So that's really not a question. It's strikes me as kind of a staff conclusion.
Well, staff consideration, sure.
Yes.
Yeah, and you're welcome to probe and confirm.
So I
It
turn.
might be helpful if you wanted to walk through each of the things you've submitted, and you can kind of, I'm running the screen, Marty's sort of running the discussion. So if you want to tell me what, I'll just go through and tell me when to stop.
Sure. Yeah, that's great.
Okay.
But I guess specifically, there were no questions about safety or parking adequacy as it relates to the Western Addition. The only questions brought up were that of access to views and access to sunlight. And so the board needs to either determine that there is no adverse impact or that there is an adverse impact, and they just need to, I guess that decision doesn't need to be made tonight, but just that enough information to make that decision needs to be obtained.
So the first thing that I pulled up are the conditional use criteria, which are views of adjoining and or nearby properties, access to sunlight, adequacy of on-site parking, and then the next one is on the next page, which says safety of adjoining or nearby properties. So those are so this is the old staff report that's in the packet. Those are the 4 criteria. And then if we keep going through to new submitted materials, there's a cover letter, which I assume you can speak to it, and I'm just going to skip ahead to the drawings. Okay.
So before we continue, right, you said there is no undue impact of sunlight, and well, we'll just do sunlight, right? So you've done a calculation on shade on the other property.
Yeah, so we'll get to those drawings.
Yeah.
Well, I just want, if she can say she's done a calculation that's not increase. I'm asking her if she can.
Yeah. If we can look at the sun studies.
Okay. So this is pictures from the existing home looking out at the next door neighbor's home.
This is to address the privacy issue. There was concerns about privacy, and right now there's little privacy for this applicant to their neighbor right now. There's windows all the way around, and we're going to be reducing the number of windows significantly for privacy.
This is one more picture of the existing conditions. Okay.
So I think a critical piece, just so that we're all on the same page about reviewing the sun study, is that there will be less sunlight on the neighbor's home as compared to the existing conditions. And so then it's the board's determination whether that's an undue adverse effect. I guess you could argue that it is an adverse effect, but is it undue compared to what could be built, if the applicant decided to go 2 stories, 5 feet from the property line, as is their right? Is this additional, is it undue? And so what Miss has done is referenced the floor plans and site plan that was approved under the conditional use. I think it was 2301. So it was the same applicant for a different building addition, came in last year. And so up in the top left, you have the existing conditions. Top right is with the proposed addition. Bottom right is what would have happened if the conditional use that was approved last year had been constructed. And then bottom left is
Just
something
showing
that
the sunrise and sunset and the sun path.
Yeah.
That time of year. So as you can see in this first slide, I think I say that there is an additional 1.25 additional window shading with the proposed addition, whereas in the previously approved pretty much shaded the entire side of the structure, because the previously approved plan had the same height of the structure, but it was more south to where that deck and the lower addition is, which when you put it more south, it affects the sun angle and creates more shading on the neighboring properties. So the addition that we're actually proposing gives more solar access than what we were proposing before.
Was it your testimony that the neighbors from 9 White Place did not object to the previously approved plan?
Correct.
Do you know why they would have been?
Well, it just said that they approved it, or that they
didn't.
They just didn't.
They never
register a public
respond.
comment
Right,
and
okay.
opposition. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, thank
We're
you.
assuming there was no. Oops.
I don't want to cut anybody else off, but I have a lot to say.
Do you, go ahead, Frank.
All right. First of all, the sketch we're looking at is clearly is determined at a particular time of the day. Right. It doesn't say what season. Sunrise varies from season. In other words, this is an
It does. Bottom left. Yeah. Bottom left is this is this.
This is a summer solstice, June 21st.
They also provided winter solstice and both equinoxes.
This is just the beginning.
There's like 25 pages of this.
There are many more?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. All right. And what do they show?
So essentially, I'm showing from, for example, we're looking at summer solstice, sunrise till there's no shadow on the structure at all. So it's to about 10 a.m. or so. And I do that for the summer solstice. I do it for the fall and spring equinox. And then I do it for the winter solstice.
You've got four,
For examples throughout
but
the year.
you don't have well, to pick the nit. I am picking a nit. It's, you don't have examples throughout the year. What I'm saying is, we don't know that the solstice is representative of what
They
happens
do.
throughout the year.
They have 4 times of year and 3
There's
or
a
4
ton of
times a
them.
day per time of year.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, there's literally an infinite number of time points in a year.
What I'm saying is the sun moves incrementally. It doesn't jump from position A. It's not a quantum leap from position A to position B with each solstice. It moves very gradually across the sky.
Correct. So
What we see is that compared, what we see with the drawing, with the illustration, is that compared to existing conditions, there is more shade on the windows. There is less sun.
That's correct.
So there is an adverse effect. Our charge is to determine whether it's an undue adverse effect.
Right. So
I'm
I think it'd be
saying-
beneficial if they got through all of these before you came to any conclusions.
Okie doke.
well, so also though, this is showing from the previous, I also sent another package that showed what it would look like at 3'4" from the property line and what would it look like at 5 feet. And there's not even inches of changes that take place from a 5-foot setback and a 3'4" setback.
So we have all of those.
Yep.
So you want to just keep moving?
Yep. Let's
Okay.
just keep going.
So this is existing, proposed, and previously approved
Correct.
at the solstice at sunrise. This next one is, I've got
8 a.m.
8 a.m. solstice.
And this is showing existing condition in the upper left, the proposed 3'4", and then on the upper right, and then on the bottom left is at 4 feet. That was the compromised position that the neighbor had requested. There's no change between the 3'4" and the 4 feet, and there is little change to the 5 feet as well.
And this one on the bottom right is the previous approval.
Correct.
Okay. Next page. So then-
For what it's worth, I consider the previous approval irrelevant to the discussion.
Okay.
And then the next one is the spring and fall equinox at 7 a.m. Existing, proposed, previous approval.
Yep.
And then equinox again, 9 a.m. proposed. I think this page kind of got
Okay,
printed
cut off.
funny.
Yeah.
I think that.
But it's showing the 4 and then the 5 feet.
4 feet
differences.
away.
Yeah.
Previous approval.
Yes, correct.
And then we get into the December solstice, existing and proposed. And then previous approval. And then if I'm picking up what you're putting down, the next
it's a
one's going to
pattern.
be 8:30 in the morning, proposed, 4 feet, and previous approval.
Correct.
Okay.
And I think it's worth noting the difference between the 3 foot and the 4 feet.
Say that again, please.
I think it's worth noting that there is no change between the 3'4" and the 4 feet. Because that's what you're looking at, is what is the adverse effect.
Okay.
So if I keep going, then this is the bottom of that page that got cut off. Okay. And then this says this is the summer solstice.
Same thing, existing, proposed, previously proposed. Wait, no.
No.
That's the proposed at 4 feet.
Proposed, and then if it were moved farther away.
Right.
So I think this is where Sun Study 1 transitions to Sun Study 2. This is a separate document.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is the one. This is before Missa put in the.
Yeah, I did this one
Previous, yeah.
first, and then I thought, well, it'd be good to show what the previous.
So this one just shows existing, proposed, and then if the proposed were in fact 4 feet away instead of 3 feet 4 inches away.
correct.
And then we go through the same series with those 3 things.
Yes. Well, I added the 5 feet just to, why not? Because the 5 feet is the boundary.
So
So
existing, proposed, 4 feet away instead, 5 feet away, which doesn't require conditional use review. So I think what's being highlighted here is the difference between this and this is
a quarter of a window, 0.25 potential. I mean, that's an estimate. I didn't actually do a calculation of shading on the window, but just looking at the study, we're talking about.
So then we go into, oh, looks like existing.
The existing, it's in full sun, so I didn't show it. And then the proposed, there's that.
Proposed, and then no conditional use required.
Correct.
And then in between condition.
Correct.
Then we're at the equinox, either equinox, existing, proposed at 4 feet away. Equinox, existing, proposed at 3 feet 4, proposed at 5 feet.
4 and 5 feet. Yep.
Yep, 4 feet,
Yep.
and then 5 feet. Existing, proposed, 4 feet, 5 feet at 9 a.m. Still on the equinox.
Correct.
Still on the equinox. No shade at 10 a.m. Proposed a little shade at 10 a.m. 5 feet, a little shade at 10 a.m.
Correct.
And then we get to the winter solstice. Existing, proposed. Oh, and then we went to proposed at 5. You almost got me there.
Sorry. Yeah.
Existing, proposed at 5. A little later in the day. Later in the day still, same situation. And then we're into the interior plans.
Okay, so thank you, Marla. Questions from the board?
I don't have a question. I'll just say I appreciate all the information that you guys have provided, both what we just went through and the interior information, because as we kind of, we're not focusing on that now, but it was something that we wanted in the record in case we needed it. And so I feel that we have sufficient information to make a decision on this.
Okay.
So I just, that's my comment at this point in time, but others from the board can speak.
What do others think? John, you've been awfully quiet. Not to put you on the spot.
No, I think we have the information that we need.
Okay. Others?
If they want to submit it as is, I have the information I need. It's not favorable to the
Okay.
application.
And Charlie?
Yep.
You have, okay. So I think that what we'll do is turn to public comment, unless you have any other brief comments you want to make before we do that.
I do. I just wanted to say that we did move the deck back to cite concerns for privacy and noise. So we moved that back to a 5 foot and we're going to provide landscaping barrier between next to that deck for privacy reasons. And we also removed a window into the bathroom on the second level as well. So we're trying to meet some of the concerns that they had.
Okay, thank you. Just an aside, has neither here nor there, but it is amazing to me what the technology for the sun can do. It's just amazing.
Yeah, it's fun.
It's helpful. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Dawn, one
Yes, sure.
question if we're going to move on to public comment. At the end of the packet, there is a summary of a legal case, legal finding. Would you like to speak to, maybe we cut you off on that at the beginning?
Yeah, we just wanted to highlight that this was, we did a little extra digging because we have concerns regardless of you approving or not approving a possible appeal by the neighbor as well, and delaying Ryan having being able to use his house even further than we've already been delayed due to cost reasons. So we found this court case in September of this year where the Supreme Court ruled in favor of the applicant. The applicant was wheelchair bound and they had an addition that required a variance from the DRB and they were denied the variance. And the the Supreme Court ruled that that this decision was discriminatory and that it violated Vermont fair housing practices by refusing to grant, as they quoted, reasonable accommodations in rules, policies, practices, or services when such accommodations may be necessary to afford a person with a disability equal opportunity to use and enjoy a dwelling unit. And I think it sets a precedent in our favor to show that if we were to pursue this, if it didn't come out in our favor, that there is precedent out there for us as a safety for us. It does take a lot of time and effort to redesign, and they've already redesigned with me once, which is money they've lost to put towards their project. So
I'm sorry, I need, if we're going to talk about that, I can't be
It
quiet.
doesn't have any bearing on the conditional use criteria, and the applicant put it in the packet, but it does not necessarily need to be part of your.
Well, it has some effect on John's thinking, so I'm going to respond to John. I completely agree with this decision. I think it's 100% on point. I think they're entitled to rely on to the extent it applies. I think that the only thing I'm saying is, A, the condition they've created is adverse to the neighbor. The neighbor has complained about it. I'm convinced it's adverse. I think it's that having it 3.5 feet away, even with the impact, with the sunlight impact it has, is unduly adverse unless it is necessary as a reasonable accommodation to the gentleman's disability, which is why I wanted to pursue that. Now, if you don't want to pursue that, you know what my vote is. If you do want to pursue that, we could. So far, I think they want a bigger closet, which doesn't impress me. Secondly, as to the vanity, I haven't, I find the argument fuzzy. I'm not persuaded by that so far, but we stopped. Now, I think if you don't want to go there, we don't need to go there.
I'll just know I guess I have a lower barrier. I was persuaded by the floor plan, so that's why I said I felt like I had sufficient information. So maybe I don't know, maybe we re-enter it, but that's they talked through it and I found it compelling. So I'll just say that.
John, what are your thoughts?
I think I have enough information at this point.
Thank you. And Charlie, do you have enough information, do you think? Okay, thanks. So, thank you. And we will now ask for public comment. Are there any members of the public who would like to comment? Yes, Kathy it is, right? Yes. Please state your name.
Hi, I'm Catherine Chase. I live at 9 White Place with my husband, Jim. We've been there, I told you, 46 years, going on 47 years. And we're not here to argue about anything. We just want to be sure that people understand that there are real people living in the house next to them. The sunlight studies are really fascinating, but it doesn't take into consideration where we sit, what we do as human beings. I'm not going to argue the whole thing, but that we are human beings in a house that we've been in for 40-something years and used to certain views, even though they're not extended fancy views, and that the sunlight is what it is. And we appreciate having that amount of sunlight and so forth. But in this case, we understand that Ryan needs to have room to move around. We are familiar with ADA compliancy. My parents both needed to have handicap bathrooms, bedrooms, so forth. So we understand that, the area to move. And so we are feeling that in the spirit of this time of year, that we will understand having a smaller setback to accommodate what Ryan needs to live a full life with his children and his wife and his family. But I just want people to understand that, really, there's real people in that house. And our views are such that they've been that way for a while. The deck is disconcerting to us because it is really close. And we want to be sure that, and the aesthetics of it is really just looking into our house. There's not a view, really. But I think with what they're proposing for some sort of greenery and perhaps a lack of party lights on there, that we could live with it. And but I want the board to understand too that there was a comment that was addressed to the board about finding humor in what I had written in my email to Ryan and Maurice, that I had requested. It's difficult for us to Zoom or to use our phones. And I've been living with a disability for 30 years. Fibromyalgia that causes some visual problems and the ability to hold a phone. So I found it a little bit disrespectful to ask the board to find humor in my request for just hard copy, which they did, and I appreciate that greatly. But there are disabilities that are not seen. And I've been living with that. And then on top of that, recently, within the last year, long-term COVID. So, accessibility is one thing for one person and something for another. But Jim and I have looked at everything. We've read conditional use. We've looked at the studies. And as I said, it's great for AI. It doesn't represent us as adults and where we stand at the window of what we see. But we are okay with this project. It's going to take away from us. It's going to take away probably the value of our property and trying to sell it, being so close. But for them to have what they need at this point is needs to take precedent. But it's not an easy thing for us. But this is what we want to do. So please, we hope that you will approve this for Maurice and for Ryan and their family. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kathy. This is a very difficult situation. Are there any other public comments? Yes.
Hello, I'm Casey Skidmore. I'm also an abutting neighbor. And I just wanted to express my husband and my support for this project. We adore the Mannings and their children. My son is good friends with their daughter, and we're just happy that they would have a path to stay in our neighborhood. So I just wanted to come and make sure that you guys knew that I'm fully in support of this project.
Thank you very much. Are there any other comments? Any online? No. Okay, then I would entertain a motion to close this hearing.
Move to close.
Second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none. Pardon me. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Okay. Thank you very much. You will be hearing from us soon.
Thank you.
Okay. The next project. Continued Master Plan Application MP 2404 of the City of Burlington and Burlington International Airport to establish a master plan for an approximately 901.6 acre existing airport complex. The master plan includes 6 projects over 21.8 acres and consists of 29,234 square feet, North Concourse expansion, a 4.0 acre multi-use path, an 8.3 acre maintenance complex with 44,000 square foot building, a 1.5 acre apron expansion, a 2.3 acre project involving hangar and apron expansion, and a 25,000 square foot south terminal expansion at 1200 Airport Drive. Lots of numbers. Who is here for the applicants, please?
Excuse me, Larry Lackey, Director of Engineering at the airport.
Hi, Larry.
Jackie DeJess with EIV Technical Services and Katie Calabrese with EIV.
Hi, Katie.
And we have Stu.
And someone else?
Yep, and Stu Moncrief here with Jacobs Engineering Group.
Is it Stu?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Anyone else? Okay. Let's start by swearing you all in. Raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under penalty of perjury?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, you have the staff report. We've all read it. And so I guess my question is, do you have any comments to make before we start going through it?
No, we're good. Thank you.
Okay. So let's see. There aren't many staff comments for this report. I'm going to read number 1. Staff considers these submissions address the omission for the North Concourse course, but estimates for water and wastewater for the South Concourse are still needed. Staff recommends the board require the applicant to provide estimated values for the South Concourse prior to closing the hearing.
So to answer the staff comment, for the North Concourse, it will remain as mentioned with 0 gallons per day for water allocation and 411 gallons per day for wastewater allocation. We did update the bid out analysis, which is part of the narrative document, to update the South Concourse allocations. The water allocation would be increased to 411 gallons per day, and the wastewater allocation would be 0. Marla and I discussed it a little bit this afternoon. Marla, did you want me to provide any additional information regarding that thought process?
So what you explained to me that sort of made it all fall into place, and tell me if I get this wrong, is that the water and wastewater estimates that were done, the water estimate was sort of a conversation with the water superintendent, who said, the increase is going to be so small, I don't need you to reserve municipal services for something on that order. I don't want to put an allocation in my books at this time for something of that magnitude. Wastewater, they worked with the water superintendent and used the FAA master plan, which is sort of I'm saying it that way because it's a distinct document from this master plan, to estimate based on the 0.8% growth rate over the next 10 years that they will increase 411 gallons of wastewater. That number takes into account all the improvements proposed at the airport. So conservatively, they said, with the support of the wastewater director, okay, let's just apply that at the beginning to the first project. And so when they submitted this, they said 411 gallons for the North Concourse. It would be more accurate to say it's 411 gallons for the combination of the North and the South Concourse. So I believe what you're saying now is that you want to apply, because you know 411 is the total, you want to apply up front the 411 to the North Concourse and then stick the 411 commensurate water on the South Concourse at a later date.
That's exactly right.
And is that per day?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
So it's on the order of water and wastewater flows, just to give you a sense of scale. That's a very small number.
Okay.
When you go to the airport, you don't use a lot of water.
Okay.
It's similar to a single family home, right? Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Questions from the board? Okay, number 2. This is about transportation and trips and impact fees. What are your comments or responses to number 2?
Sure. We've updated the master plan narrative to reflect the North and South Concourse projects having 22 p.m. peak trips each.
Okay.
So my question for you in this was, is it appropriate to apply the document that you supplied for the site plan to this master plan? And I'm hearing that the answer is yes.
Mm-hmm.
And that 44 trips. So the question that staff poses to the board is, because this 44 trips is proposed for the next 10 years of growth at the airport terminal, is the board comfortable splitting that in half, apply half of it for the first project and half for the second project?
John, Frank, Charlie? Makes sense? Okay, good. Thank you. Okay, that brings us to the end of the staff comments.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So this master plan applies to the entire lot, correct? Are you planning on any subdivisions of this lot in the future?
No.
Okay. Just asking that as a testimony because we received interesting not application, site plan application, right?
Oh, wait a minute. If you're talking lease, I mean, okay, all right.
Subdivision
I
of
get the
this
question.
lot.
Okay. So whenever we lease area, that requires a subdivision. So the answer would be yes. We have parcels that we want to apply. I see what you're saying now.
Okay.
Yeah. Because anytime we lease any piece of property, whether it's Beta or anybody else, we lease that, which requires a subdivision. Yeah. So
This
yes,
master
I
plan
apologize.
lasts for 10 years. And should we be seeing future plans of subdivision on this master plan?
There's nothing that precludes subdivision as long as it's consistent with the master plan.
So
this
it's
master
not currently
plan,
in this master plan, right?
this master plan approves 6 project areas. If they were to propose to subdivide some
They would need to
lands
amend this, right?
without developing, well, no, that wasn't what I was going
Oh,
to
I'm
say. What I was going to say, if they were proposing, say, to subdivide off the heritage hangar that's south of Beta on Airport Drive. So I'm not talking about the one that you have a proposed project, but like something where you're not doing anything. You're just subdividing the lands because heritage has gone under and now there's some new company and they insist that they have a lease for that particular center of operations. But they weren't proposing any development. I think that's just the final plat. I don't think that they need to amend the master plan because it's not inconsistent in any way with the master plan.
Yeah. And we, there's all kinds of people like to do things and we don't know for sure.
Yeah, it's just, last meeting we had an application or site plan review or whatever we call it, right? And at the end, it was like, wait, this is airport property. And I was just, it wasn't even on here, right? Beta's looking to subdivide the land, right?
Not that I know.
You're an applicant as part of that. You should be
okay.
aware, right?
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay. Because of the lease.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, but
of
it still
course.
subdivides the
Okay.
land.
They have their own. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. We are. Yes.
Right. So if they were proposing to subdivide the land and do a bunch of development in it, then it would be a master plan amendment because it'd be something that's not consistent with the master plan.
And they have approved the master plan now, right? Correct.
So there's the 2 Beta things, right? There's the Beta sketch for the area on Airport Drive, and then there's the Beta in the Beta's master plan, which is excluded from this master plan.
Right. That's right. Yeah. Right. But I understand your question now. If we do look to lease parcels for people, and that could happen. Yes. Yeah. And that would require subdivision. So. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. And we will now turn to public comment. Obviously, there's nobody here to comment. Anything online? No. Okay. I would entertain a motion to close this hearing.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Thank you. Now let's move on. Okay, this is site plan application SP 2441 of the City of of Burlington and Patrick Leahy Burlington International Airport for a portion of the first phase of a concurrent master plan for an existing airport complex. The project consists of demolishing approximately 4,250 square feet of existing concourse and constructing a 29,234 square foot 3-story addition at the north end of the existing terminal building at 1200 Airport Drive. Do I have to swear them in again? Same team?
Same team.
Do they need to be
They do
sworn?
need to be sworn in.
Okay. Raise your right hand, please, for this project. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under penalty of perjury?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
And for the record, state your name, please. Names?
Larry Lackey.
Jackie DeJess.
Katie Calabrese.
Stu Moncrief.
Thank you all. Okay. Before we dive into this, do you have any comments to make?
No.
Okay. Any questions from the board before we start? Okay. First, with this additional information stack, staff recommends the board find this criterion to be met, so we really don't have to discuss that. The next one is about the exterior rendering and entering it into the record. If the board is relying on what was shown on November 19th to determine compliance with this criterion, staff recommends the board require the applicant to submit the rendering as part of the record for this project.
And we've included that rendering with this packet, and it's also been emailed.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. Number 3, staff recommends the board discuss whether they are comfortable with the testimony. If not, they should have the applicant provide a conclusion from CBES's code official or authority having justification.
So this is about whether they need to retroactively apply EV charging to their existing parking spaces, and that only would apply if the CB's considered this to be a new parking facility, and they've testified their architect testified. Is that right?
That's
That-
right. Yep.
That
our
this would
architect.
not be considered a new parking facility. So the board doesn't have any authority to otherwise require EV charging. It's only under the cases of new parking facilities. So if they agree with the determination, then you can move on. And if you disagree, then the board still doesn't have any authority. The board has to defer to the code official or authority having jurisdiction over the CVs.
Okay, thank you. Once again, my comments didn't carry. Staff recommends the board ask the applicant to clarify their intention. If they in fact intend to apply for reduction by providing a geothermal system, staff recommends the board require a plan showing the theoretical solar-ready zone prior to closing the hearing and documentation that the energy produced by the theoretical solar-ready zone is met or exceeded by the geothermal system as part of the zoning permit application in accordance with C below.
So we've included in this packet a geothermal system output summary memo. We've also included the geothermal design plans and also the roof plans showing the solar ready zone. And I know we've got Stu online. Stu, did you have anything additional to add?
No, I think I just pointing out that the geothermal system that's going to be installed produces just about, well, it has a theoretical maximum output of more than 10 times what the solar ready zone on the roof would be able to provide. That theoretical maximum is assuming that the system in the new building would be extracting maximum capacity out of that at all times, which wouldn't be the case. Our geothermal designers have estimated about 800,000 kilowatt hours per year will be extracted, which is still double what the more than double what the solar ready zone on the roof would be able to provide.
So just a step back, because I'm fairly certain I can infer your response to the question at hand here. The question is, are you asking to reduce the requirements for rooftop solar because of an alternative system? And I infer the answer is yes. The alternative system being geothermal.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
now, and then you go on to say that the geothermal will produce more than the solar ready zone would produce, which is the requirement in C below.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Does that clarify?
Yes.
Clarify?
So staff recommends the board require the applicant to identify the proposed TDM measures to achieve the required reduction in trips prior to closing the hearing.
Huh?
Oh, wait, you know what? I'm sorry. I jumped ahead to the next question.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Sorry about that. Yeah, right. Any comments or questions from the board on number 4? Okay. All right, now we'll move on to number 5. This is about transportation demand management. Staff recommends the board require the applicant to identify the proposed TDM measures to achieve the required reduction in trips prior to closing the hearing.
And we agree with this approach. We plan to submit TDM with the South Concourse project application.
Okay, questions?
So this is hinges on the board's agreement in the master plan that they're under the TDM threshold for this project, but
Right.
will be over for the South Concourse.
So, yeah. Okay, number 6, staff recommends the board require the applicant to show proposed long-term bike parking prior to closing the hearing. If the applicant chooses to show a couple of options, the board may condition the approval on one of the specific provided options being constructed.
So we're proposing 2 options, adding indoor bike storage for 8 bikes in the north terminal, and then adding 4 bike lockers, each with space for 2 bikes in the parking garage. And we've included a long-term bike parking proposal memo with additional details that are included as part of this packet.
Okay, questions?
So you have your
Yep,
decision.
if I could clarify that.
Go ahead, Stu.
So the proposal that we put forth in our memo was for 4 new bike parking spaces in the garage. That would be 2 new locker cabinets, each of which hold 2 bikes. The other 4 required would go in the new building. So we're required to provide an additional 8 as part of the summary calculation that was provided for the last meeting. So of the 8, we would put 4 in the new building and 4 would go in the parking garage in these in these lockers.
Gotcha. So instead of you're changing your original comment, which was the board, we'd like the board's recommendation on where to put them, and now you're saying this is where we want to put them. Is that correct?
So yeah, so this is the proposal, is to put 4 inside the new building and then put 4 in the garage.
Wait, I thought Jackie just said 8 in the new building.
No, it's 4 in the new building and 4 in the garage. So we basically split it in half.
Total of 8. Sorry, that's a typo.
Total of 8.
And so somewhere in this packet, if you could direct us, is a plan showing where those go?
Sure, exactly. Yep. And if you go to the page,
There you go.
yep, to the
You're at the page.
Yep, exactly. So these are the ones that we propose in the new building. It would be in the northwest corner, just inside of that overhead roll top door, adjacent to the man door there on the north side of the building. So we would likely put in wall mounted racks just for space savings. And that would accommodate 4 bikes there in that northwest corner of the new building.
You good? Okay, good. All right. This 7 is about lighting fixtures. You've read it. I wonder what your comments are.
We've included a photometric plan just after the bike memo, which shows the mounting height of the lighting fixtures and also cut sheets all on one plan sheet, and demonstrates that we're meeting the illumination level requirements.
Okay.
It's a little hard to see, but if you look closely, you can see those mounting heights. Yep, you've got it if you zoom in.
Oh, those numbers are the mounting heights.
Mm-hmm.
Got it.
Correct.
It's helpful on a screen because they are very small.
Is that good? Yes. Okay. Questions from the board? Okay, that brings us to the end. Before we turn to public comment, are there any questions or comments from the board? No? All right, thank you. And now, I know there's no one here making public comments. Is there anyone online?
5 or 6 people.
Really? Okay. I was gonna say, really? Okay. I would entertain, pardon me, a motion to close this hearing.
Move to close.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstained? Okay. Thank you
you
very
for
much.
your time doing this. We
Thank
appreciate
you.
Thank you so
Happy
much.
holidays.
Thank you.
Minutes.
Minutes. I know I read the, pardon?
I was just saying, I think it's just 18th.
Yep.
Yeah,
I'll
just
move
one set. I did read them. I'll move acceptance of the November 19th minutes.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Any other business? No? All right. With that, we will conclude this meeting and recording, and we will then go into deliberations. Thank you all. Happy holidays.
Just give us a little.